Hello and welcome. We'll get our session going. My name is Kurt Witt. Welcome to this Upgrade Your Sound product showcase. I'm with Music and Arts, and I'm really excited to spend some time talking about the Strobel lineup of string instruments made by Eastman. We've got a special guest joining us from Eastman with the string team, specialist Rachelle Puccini. Rachelle is here to discuss a couple of key models, share some insights into what makes Eastman Strings unique, and of course answer any questions that might come up during the presentation. You can see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so at any point during the session you can post a question and we'll be happy to discuss it live, or somebody will be able to answer you. The Strobel lineup of strings are incredibly popular among teachers and students, and we're going to dive into in depth three particular models and hear from our expert Rachelle on why Strobel is a great choice for the advancing orchestral string player looking to upgrade to a better instrument. So welcome, Rachelle, and take it away.
Thank you, Kurt. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Violin making is hundreds and hundreds of years old, and there are so many amazing instruments out there that are, Stradivari, Guarneri. We have such a rich and long tradition. Those instruments cost millions of dollars, and throughout the centuries, they haven't been really accessible to students. Of course, they're very valuable, usually played by, the elite soloists, then passed down to great musician to great musician. So this company was founded in 1992 out of a need to get great sounding, high quality instruments into the hands of students. And that is something that the Eastman brand has really stuck to, and what sets it apart from any other type of string makers out there that are producing string instruments for students. A lot of other companies have resorted to machine, factory, molded tops, this kind of things. Economically, it makes some sense on paper, but for a string player, it makes no sense at all. Our instruments need to be hand carved, they need to be chiseled. The least amount of people on an instrument, the better. And that's something that Eastman knows. And even though it might cost a little bit more for them to produce, and it takes more training of the craftsmen and all of the high quality tools that go into something like this, but they've really stuck it out and they've said, no, we cannot compromise on quality. And so these instruments that Eastman makes are done the same way that Stradivarius, Guarneri, using the same type of tools and the same type of techniques. And that's what sets us apart. And that's why I'm proud to speak about Eastman and why my students have done such a nice job when they get an instrument of a higher quality, because it just really shows their commitment to craftsmanship.
It's really surprising, Rachelle, how the way the violin is made has been relatively unchanged over the years. You think about all the technology that has impacted our lives and all the improvements in manufacturing, but yet the way a violin is made, the basic core tone woods, the varnish, is frankly pretty much unchanged, isn't it?
It's true. There are, a few things that have come in and out of practice, and you'll see with the top modern makers today, they've enacted some techniques to get to the root of higher quality wood, to age the wood faster, because we've learned that older wood, in particular more mature wood, has better resonance. So, but yes, the core of what you're saying is very true. Stradivari came out with a wonderful pattern, a wonderful technique, and luthiers ever since have been trying to copy him, really ever since his violins, for hundreds of years. All of those makers have been trying to get their hands on a Strad, copying it, and Guarneri too, trying to copy these patterns, these techniques, wondering where did he get his wood? Why does it sound like this and nothing else comes close, So yeah, Eastman is doing it the same way. They're enacting the same techniques. They're copying famous instruments that have been around for centuries and doing their best to copy them as well as any other luthier is trying. So yeah, it's great. It's a wonderful tradition.
Well, it's certainly all about the wood and the material. So why don't you dive into the first model that you're going to cover? I think you have the ML 700, I believe.
Yeah. So this is the 700 here. This is a lovely instrument. It's not really antique. It's lightly antiques. And when I talk about antiquing, I don't know if you can see, it's speaking to that tradition, that long history that we have. It somehow got into our heads as string players that older instruments were better. That's not necessarily true nowadays. We're pitting modern makers against Stradivarius, and these modern makers are winning now. I could give you a list of names who's winning the battles, but at the professional soloist level. But that kind of mindset trickles down here to our student models, and we somehow got in our head that new is not cool and old is better, so that we can pretend that we've got that 300-year-old instrument. And so that's the culture of antiquing. That's where that comes from. So they actually de-stress the wood a little bit, the varnish a little bit, and every distressing is usually copying some famous instrument I spoke to earlier. So I'm not sure what this is copying, but you see there's a little natural wear here where the hand might hold, and then on the back here. So it's actually really beautiful. This one is patterned after a Guarneri, but I think it's a much thinner Guarneri because this is a little bit brighter sound. Right, let me hope it's in tune. As it speaks a little bit brighter, a little bit more focused sound. It's a lovely instrument, it's very clear and clean. So this is a great choice for someone who's stepping up. I love the outfit as well. This case, I don't know if you can see very well. I'm gonna try to get it more into the shot here. This is one of my favorite cases that Eastman carries. It's this shaped backpack case. And the first time I saw these, I just went bananas because we all love those cello cases. And then just to have one in our size was just like thrilling. It's very durable. It's made very, very well. And the straps are thoughtful, of somebody who's carrying it around like a backpack, in airports, to school, this kind of thing. We really need the case to hold up. So that case is a rock star. It also doesn't scratch very easily because it's got this texture on it. The bow that comes with that outfit, I believe, is a carbon fiber Pernambuco wrapped. So I always recommend carbon fiber to students because things happen, bows get sat on, there's bow fights. I mean, this stuff shouldn't happen. We try to prevent it, but it just does. If you have a student and they're going to be in the pit playing for a musical, so many accidents happen in the pit. We're all squeezed together and we're under some kind of shell and we can't even see, it's so dark. So, oh my goodness, if I had a dollar for every time I've seen a bow accident, I'd be a rich woman.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Carbon fiber is wonderful.
One of the common questions that I get asked by parents is they look at a violin and kind of every violin looks more or less the same, but really the magic is in the wood and the tone woods that instrument is made of. Tell me about where the wood for that model comes from and what makes that unique.
Yeah, it's European tone wood. To be honest, us violinists, we don't get too much into which wood goes with what. We leave, really, it has to be made of good wood. That's super important. But as a professional player, I've never gone to my maker and go, now, which wood are you using? Are you sure? I leave, if it's a good company, if it's a good maker, I leave that decision to them. They really do understand. It's not like, maybe like brass instrument where you want to be sure what metals you're using, and different metals with different lacquer is gonna you want to be involved in that decision. The wood really, it's got to be high quality, and Eastman has definitely taken care of that across the board, and they've referenced which wood goes with each instrument. So if you are curious, these are European tone woods that I know. They make a point of mentioning that, because I think for them, craftsmanship is at the heart of every decision. They're super transparent about where they're sourcing the wood, and the quality of it. So it's important to know, but like when I choose a violin, I'm not like, oh, this one against this one because of the.
Right, it's all about the sound. So that's an amazing package. The case is super cool, and the carbon fiber bow. Who would be like the ideal advancing student for this particular instrument? What would be kind of the characteristics of that student where you would say, okay, this might be the perfect instrument for that kind of student?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think we have two questions here. One is when you know your student is ready for a step up. And two, when you are ready for when oh, it's time for the step up, which violin for which personality, which type of player. So I'll speak to the latter first. This type of player might be really interested in something a bit brighter, a little bit more focused. Sorry, my daughter is singing or something in the background. And that's that violin. That's definitely focused, definitely a little bit more to the point. I happen to like that a little bit more. So that's the type of player I would have in mind for that. Sometimes if the person is in a leadership role, hold on one second.
It's 2020 for us, right?
I know. I'm not even shy about it anymore. It's just
this is the world we live in.
Puppies and kids and everything. So the next instrument that I'll introduce is the 500, the Strobel 500. And that is a little bit more warm, a little bit rounder. The 700, the one behind me here, this, if you're in a leadership role, this one you might want to choose because you're going to be heard. And that's really important. Sometimes it's more important to blend. And really, it just all comes down to personality. Some players really want to stick out. And some players just really want to blend. They like that dark, warm tone. Some like a more focused tone. So I think separating those two categories, and there's a billion shades of gray in between this. It's not black or white, it's not warm or bright, but I think at this level, at the student level, when we're talking about step ups, it's really great to just categorize it into these two sides. Do you want something bright and focused? Do you want something warm? That's really easy for the store to kind of, okay, we know this goes with this and this goes with this. And then as a young parent or a young string player, it's easier to kind of start from such a simple question.
Yeah, that must be an incredibly challenging thing for a player, because sound is so subjective, isn't it? What sounds bright and clear to me might sound dark and warm to you, and with a different player in a different setting.
For sure.
Really important. I think you always recommend to have a couple of sets of ears, right, when you're trying something, just to get that feedback from a couple of different people.
Absolutely. And to your point, I always recommend to stores or to students in general that if they are working with a private teacher, which is obviously the ideal scenario, and if you're a violinist or if you're a string player out there and you're thinking, what is a private teacher, and you're getting more serious about your instrument, or you just really enjoy it, you don't know why, you just really enjoy it and you want more, and you can't get enough, you can't wait till orchestra, that might be a clue to you that, hey, you might want to seek out a private teacher, because after that, the sky's the limit of how far you can go. And there's so much more to our string instruments than what's given in orchestra. Orchestra is kind of a celebration of what we can do, whereas when you work with a private teacher, you're really working on skills and advance at a rate that's just unstoppable. So I highly recommend that. But so when you have a private teacher, that person can really guide you through the whole instrument choosing process. I myself am a teacher of about a dozen students, and I always guide them through the process. As much to say as I will get instruments for them, weed out the ones that I don't want them to even consider, and take maybe 2 or 3 that I've approved, and then give it to my students to choose the final. You got to let them have their choices. But just taking care of things that I don't want in their sound or in an instrument, making sure that they're getting a good quality instrument. And when you're dealing with Eastman, there's no, they're all great. So that's an easy choice. So if they're not working with a private teacher, having other string players there to guide them. So whether that means a school teacher is there to kind of help, to be ears, that can happen in the classroom, that can happen, in the store, wherever. Just getting another person to play it for them, I think, is super important. We learned so much about when we do the blind test. If you don't know what the blind test is, the person who's buying the instrument closes their eyes while the instruments are played for them. And it's amazing because what instrument you think you were in love with under the ear is not the one that you choose when you hear it away from the instrument. It's because sound under the ear and sound, 3 feet, 6 feet, a hall away from you is completely different. So it's super important to enjoy the sound that's coming out on that end rather than just, oh, I like how this hears. Some violins don't express themselves right underneath your ear. They're out in front a bit. And then you can have, conversely, it's true as well. Some instruments are all in the ear and then nothing's coming out. So you have to be careful. I love the blind test.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I have more questions about the process of testing an instrument, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to hear more about the next model. So you said the 700 was kind of the a little brighter, clear tone. And then the 500, you talked about being a little bit warmer, rounder tone.
I think so. But this violin is a gorgeous instrument. This is definitely Guarneri pattern. It's a little fatter here. And the antiquing is a little bit more intense. I don't know if you can see. It looks a little older.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it feels a little bit more refined. The tailpiece is, the rosewood or the boxwood. Yeah, it's boxwood. And the pegs are the nice carved pegs, which I just love. I mean, they've done an outstanding job with this instrument. It's really gorgeous. Looks the part for sure. If I was toting this around my school orchestra, you'd have no idea it was a brand new instrument. So it's all of the perks of a modern instrument with all of the things we know now, with the look of something that's older. So. A little flat, but
yeah, of course we're all listening through headphones and computers, and a little challenging to tell. But what for you as a player between those two instruments, what do you notice in your sound between the two?
So the first one is brighter, definitely brighter, more focused. I get a faster response. Here, this is a little slower, a little slower response, a little fatter sound, darker.
Okay. Yeah. But darker is not necessarily good or bad, is it?
No. It's total personal choice. It's you could say it's sometimes a little less offensive. Our E strings can get out of control. We're way up there. It's very high. Some people really enjoy that sound. Some people don't. We usually call them violists. They just don't bother with the E at all. They're like, this is not for me. But sometimes you have a violist trapped in a violinist body and they really don't like the E. I actually don't like the E either, even though my tendency is towards a really bright, loud instrument. Like I want that power. I tend to be a more aggressive player. So I want to zing to the back of the hall. I want to be heard. I want to be present. I don't want to work so hard to stand out above an orchestra. I want to let the violin just do its job, and so that I can relax on it. I think the benefit to having a louder instrument is that we don't need to push so much. But that's if you like that sound. There's definitely two types, really, really, and then within those two types, more types. But
that high school violinist who loves playing an orchestra, but probably is not going to be a music major, but is going to keep playing through their whole life, playing community orchestras. The 500 actually would be a really nice instrument for them, wouldn't it? It will blend in all situations, beautiful, warm, round tone.
I think that, it's entirely impossible to predict, when they're buying their step up, if they're going to be that person or not. So I always like to choose a violin for, and I tell my students this, okay, we're going to choose a violin that will hold its value, or you can trade it up to the shop later. I don't know if Music and Arts does that. Do you have like a trade-in program?
There's for student instruments, it's possible to do, and there are always lots of different ways that people can find homes for their used instrument. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty standard. Usually all music stores. So I wasn't shy to mention it, but we get a violin that's going to hold its value, that they can either sell to a neighbor or, get what it's worth out of it, and then get on to the next. Buying some of these mass-produced instruments, like the formed pattern. I don't think it was like a pressed. I think that's what it is. Those don't hold value at all. That's like a car, you drive it off the lot, it's already dropped in value, and they just don't hold up either because the technique is wrong. So oftentimes they'll have cracks, and that's just not sellable. So we make sure that we're getting a violin that if you need to sell it, you can, and you can keep stepping up if you happen to decide that, violin is definitely for me. I was such a late bloomer. So the violin that I left high school with, would have served me fine, but I had no idea that I was, headed for this life, So I always want to make sure people are prepared. But then they find that violin that they buy that's going to make sure that they can play it in, all their life. That if they did just keep that one for the rest of their life, they'll be super happy taking it out at parties or just jamming occasionally, doing that community orchestra, that it's going to hold up. If we're trying to decide between the 700 and the 500, though, I think that it comes down to what type of playing you're doing. If you like being in the section of the orchestra, you like second violin, or even if you like first violin, but you like that dark warm tone, that instrument's great. Yeah, if you just are bothered by fast spinning E strings, then then I think something warmer, and the strings can help a lot too. Actually, Eastman just came out with not just, it was a couple of years ago, they came out with their line of strings. And I just did an online review of it. It's not published yet, but it's going to come out. And they're great strings. The E string on that is so even with the rest of the set. It's really nice.
Well, no doubt we never really know what musical journey we're on until we get there. Isn't that the truth? So you've got one other instrument. You've got, I think, the 300 there, don't you?
Yes. Oh, but may I show the outfit for the 500? Because I'm really
yeah, absolutely. The case is such an integral part of anything we buy, isn't it?
I hate to admit it as a string player, but the case is everything. It really is. It's like we live with these things. They get beat up. They, sometimes in an airport there are a chair. Don't sit on your violin, but I've done it. They're everything. So this outfit is the really, really nice. I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
With the hydrometer, 4 bows, a string tube. It's just absolutely decked out. It's got everything. It's a little heavier because there's so much in it, but it's really strong. The bow is a wood bow, which I also love. I'm always caught in the middle because carbon fiber is durable, but wood is what we use. You know, this is the standard. This is ideal, a wood bow. So I feel like carbon fiber is a great choice up to a certain price point. And after that, you've got to go with wood, you know? So they've really included a beautiful bow here. I like it very much. It's got trying to find it's got the mother of pearl. You know,
Yeah,
it's
beautiful,
gorgeous.
beautiful package.
Yeah.
In these step-up strings, the hygrometer that measures moisture levels in the case, that's really, really important, isn't it, for the kind of care and maintenance of that instrument?
Very important. Absolutely. We need a certain level of humidity, and that hydrometer lets you keep tabs on that. Also, you know, making sure that students are buying dampits or some kind of little in-case humidifier. That's crucial. I haven't had to use mine this year yet because my violin doesn't leave this room. I've got my humidifier on in here, and it's golden. But usually I'm all over the place, and I need a humidifier or dampits or something. Yes.
It's certainly true with those advancing instruments. Now, the student instrument is meant for durability. It's not really meant for sound, and so the sacrifice of the improved sound also comes with a little bit of added care and feeding of that instrument and ultimately
So
the
true.
product.
Absolutely. I call the rental I call them the rental market, right? Because they're in and out of my studio all over the place. My daughter's on a rental cello right now. I mean, these things are not very well, they're not extremely rewarding. So it can be easy, you can get discouraged easily if you're an advancing player because you know, like all the effort you're putting in, I think maybe you're getting out like 70% or something like that. But the upside, because my daughter's 5, is that she drops her cello. And you know, we've already snapped a neck and a bridge so far, and in the 3 years we've been playing, so we're on a good start. Not to mention dropping the bows and sitting. I mean, it's just a hot mess. So these instruments absolutely need to take a beating. Again, like right in front of my face, all my little violin students, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, dropping their instruments. Thank goodness there's carpet in my studio because they get dropped, the bows get sat on, they have to be made like tanks, otherwise it's not going to happen. So what's going on in the rental market instrument is it's a heavier instrument. Basically, it's there's more wood on it, just to boil that down to a simple concept. As we get into the higher, the professional level instruments, there's less wood, they're lighter, they're more fragile. Although a well-made violin is going to really be built, strong in the right ways. But you won't feel that under your chin. It's going to be light, so that the vibrations can do their job, and all that effort is going right out. It's going in and out. 100% of what I give, I get back. And that's the goal.
I have a close friend who calls that the fun factor. It becomes then fun to play the instrument. Where the student instrument, again, granted, is designed to be durable and to be that kind of workhorse to get you started while you're establishing your tone. But then the step up instrument now allows you to really express your sound and the fun factor, which I think is so so appropriate for musical instruments. So that's a good segue to the third instrument. You have the
same.
The 300, which would be kind of like that very first step up past the student instrument, where your sound now starts to blossom a little bit as the instrument responds to you.
I agree. So let's make sure we can see. So the case is oblong, which is like this 500, but it's not as fancy, but it still looks great, still durable, still does its job. We still have a hydrometer, we still have 4 bows, it still can be backpack, it's got everything this one has. This one's just a little bit more like, souped up. This one has the gold, it's got a little bit paisley like fabric inside, it's fancy. This is just basic, but has all of the things that the other one does, which I think is really important, including a string tube. This one also has a Pernambuco wrapped carbon fiber stick, which again, for that first step up, this is really key. It looks like wood, so you're saving face. Although I love the look of the real carbon fiber bow. It's just great too. Carbon fiber bows are great. A lot of professionals use them. They're really, really fantastic. And they've done a really nice job with the frog. Everything looks good and professional. So this one, the 300, is definitely lighter than the rental market. The craftsmanship has made a huge step up. So you're right, it's a really great first step up. I think if you're in this price point, it's a winner. If you're in the other price points, but it's your first step up, you can go right there. That there's no, you don't have to work all the way through, first we'll do 300, we'll see. And then, no, I would go right to take your budget into consideration and buy the violin based on that. And as shops know, they just show them all of the instruments within the budget. They're not just going to show you, oh, your budget is 700, in the 700 series, we're just going to show you 700s. No, they'll show you 500 and 700s. Sometimes you might like a violin that's a little lower than your budget, just because you like that violin, that's your sound. And good shops know that. They just show everything and let the customer really, really go for it. So this is the 300. I find it a little bit more on the brighter side. To be honest, it's a good marriage between the two. It doesn't take really either side. I'm not sure what pattern it is. It does look like Guarneri. I think all three of these are Guarneris. It's a nice dark wood. This one doesn't have really any antiquing. I think, being at the lower end of our budget here with the 300, not having a violin antiqued saves a lot of time. So what you're getting is something that just looks a little bit new, which a lot of people like. I have a brand new violin and I didn't ask for it antiqued. I wanted it to look the way the maker intended. So in addition to my Eastman, I have an Eastman. This instrument, I think when you think about, oh, it's not antiqued, well, antiquing doesn't really do anything to the sound. That's just aesthetic, that it's almost meaningless. It's just to kind of look the part, to have a prettier instrument if you think that's pretty. But it's a total matter of opinion. So having the 300 without antiquing, it doesn't make much difference when we're talking about quality.
Ironic that the violin is one of the few instruments where we actually want it to look old, or most other musical instruments we buy, we want it to look brand new.
I know.
Maybe that and blue jeans, right? We don't want to buy blue jeans that look like they're brand new. That are worn in. What would be, so for that student that has been renting an instrument and goes to play their first step up violin, and now you've got all these beautiful tone woods and beautiful tone, what is it about the sound that student will notice? Is it the presence, the amount of sound they're getting for their effort? You were talking about that. What is it that student is going to notice and go, wow, you mean this is what a violin sounds like?
Yeah, I think that the effort that they're giving is going to be noticed. Like, oh wow, I didn't know I sounded like that. And I think that as a parent, when you're thinking about, oh, is it worth to step up for the rental or not? I think that's the most important factor, is that, you can have a student that's practicing and practicing and practicing, and they're at orchestra and they're doing all this work. And then when it comes time to, let's say audition for a certain seat or audition for a certain part, or perhaps they want to participate in an additional youth orchestra that they need to audition into. so many auditions in our life, right? So many parts we want, that I think the disappointment would be that I have a child that's working so hard and that work is not showing up because of their instrument. So I think that when you get a step up in your hand, that's when we start going, oh, okay, wow. Like I can hear your vibrato now. I can hear your faster passages. I can hear your intonation, which sometimes is a scary thing. Some people don't like being confronted with their intonation, but it's all very, very good. You know, anything we can notice, a great violin will tell you the truth. And that's what we want. We want to know what we sound like. We want to know where our notes are. We want to know all of the stuff we're doing so that we can either fix it or praise it or whatever your teacher
So
said.
many insights into the mind of a violinist. The sound of the E string and a great violin will tell you the truth. I love that.
Yeah, well, the E string thing is just my opinion, you know. Like I wouldn't run with that one.
All right, we'll file that under the opinion. Another quick question about the trying out of the instrument. So, okay, the student is, going into the practice room with maybe their teacher, the parent or whatever.
Yeah.
How should they try a step-up violin? Should you be playing like the most difficult passage, and if you can't play that, then you're not ready for it, or
No.
what should you be playing?
Yeah, not at all. You need to play long whole notes, like just really, really frog to tip with a heavier arm, with a heavier bow arm, and faster bow. So you really just need to hear this instrument. You need to hear what it sounds like. All strings, we need to. There's a couple things we need to figure out. First of all, is it even? What is the sound of this instrument? Like, do I like that sound? Do I like that E string, right? And some of this can be changed with different strings, but not a lot. And some people say, oh, well, the new violin, it will get better. Not so much. What the violin is what it is. And there's a few things the luthier in the house can do, and there's a few things you can do to tweak the sound. But, when you're listening for the sound, we're really in brackets, right? Okay, this is good, this is excellent, this is not good. So you need to listen for those brackets. When you're within those brackets, then we can do a little bit of string. Hey, you don't like that E string? Fine, we'll put a different one on. Oh, you think it's a little out of balance? Perhaps the G string is too loud. Let me move that sound post around a little bit. And having someone in the shop who can do that and knows that can be done is super important. So really educating the client on, hey, we can change a few things. A lot of times I know I'm diverting just a little bit, but a lot of times we get a student in there who's like, well, I don't like the brown. I prefer the black. And they're not listening to the sound at all. So it's important for the staff to know, oh, you know what? We can just change that. You got to listen. You've got to hear the sound. Don't look at the color of the varnish. Don't look at that's why the blind test is so great. So to your point, we're just playing whole notes. After that, we want to see how clean and clear it is. So maybe a little faster run. Vibrato is the easiest way to tell if an instrument is giving back to you what you're giving. What I mean by that is, I don't want to call one better than the other, but the numbers say it, right? So the 700, I'm not even sure if this is going to come out over Zoom, but the 700 will oscillate faster. Vibrato, for those of you who don't know, vibrato is when I rock my hand back and forth like this. A good violin will share with you the oscillations of the vibrato. You'll be able to hear that. And that speaks to my point earlier about all of that hard work that we're doing showing up on the instrument, and us being able to hear that, and more importantly, our audience being able to hear that, no matter if that's an audition committee, a teacher, or a crowd full of thousands of people, or right now online. So we want to hear those oscillations, the whipping back and forth of the finger. So hopefully it was heard. Wah, 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 wah. Okay, back and forth. I'm going to take the 300, do the same thing. It's still there. It's just not as fast. It's a little bit more clouded. Okay, so that's what we're listening for next. We want to hear the tone. Second, we want to hear the clarity. We want to make sure that our vibrato is speaking, that the speed of our fingers, you can do a little fast passage like I did. The student doesn't have to be a rock star yet. That it's not necessary, but you should hear the pop, 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 pop off of the fingers. That's a really good sign that the instrument is clear, clean. It's not going to lie to you.
Yeah, some really good advice, and frankly, all of what you said goes true for almost any instrument you're testing, whether it's a flute, a trumpet, a saxophone, a cello, a violin. Those things, qualities of listening to the instrument and letting the instrument speak to you. And so often I think we listen with our eyes and make determinations about how something sounds based on how we perceive it.
Or we listen with our pocketbook too, which is difficult. It's my husband is a trumpet player, and he always makes this joke because bows and violins can get hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just absurd. And I have a bow of, like, let's say Y value. But I want a bow of Z value. Wow, And occasionally I'll try bows in the Z price range. And my husband will I'll go, okay, well, which one, I'll try my bow against all these different bows, and I'll say, hey, I really like this one. Do you think it's better than my bow? After we get done with the whole testing process, which can be exhausting. And he'll go, yeah, but is it XYZ much better than that? Is it $4,000 better? No, it's not. It's, is it $50 better? I don't know. So he's quantifying, the amount of progress that going from Y to Z is for me. And he's like, it's not worth it. But for a violinist, of course it's worth it. I want that. I want that 5% or 20%. So in this land, we're not worried so much about that, but it's important for the customer to do this blind test totally blind, and that's from the parent's perspective too. Mm-hmm. You should give the shop, the associate who's helping you out, your price range, and they know not to violate that. That's a dirty trick. And most reputable shops do not, show you something that's over without your permission. So people are really, really great in that way. I've had wonderful experience with music and arts, and
absolutely. Yeah. So I have one more question before we kind of wrap things up. We didn't talk at all about the new electroacoustic models that Eastman has come out with, which I think are really, really interesting. That it's your basic acoustic violin, and it looks exactly like an acoustic violin, but it has some technology in it that I think is unbelievable, and that from the instrument as it is can be plugged into an amplifier, but yet your orchestra director will frankly never know that it's not the same acoustic violin that everybody else has.
Sure. Yeah. So this is the electric acoustic here. This happens to be modeled on 600 something, but it can be put on any instrument essentially. Eastman, like if you wanted the 300 for instance, and you wanted that in an electric acoustic, you can have that. Or if you're like, oh no, I love this violin, I want the 500, then you can get it in electric acoustic. You might have to order it for you, but that's fine. That's no big deal. Like you'll get it in, whenever you get it. But so yeah, it looks exactly the same. There's no difference. And I think that they are quite ahead of the whthe electric acoustic concept. There's like a couple other ideas on the market, like with a big clamp here on the side, or like a huge jack in the side of the violin. And that's just a no-go. Like people who need an acoustic instrument are not gonna buy that. It adds so much extra weight, it rattles, it looks like you're up to no good. Like, what do you mean? You're not a serious violinist. Why do you have that junk on there? Okay.
A violinist who's up to no good.
Yeah.
I love
We
that.
could be incredibly snobby. So, um, you don't want that. If you're in orchestra or if you're in a classical situation, you don't want that extra weight on there. So what they've done is they've just attached a wire to the base of the bridge. It doesn't rattle. It doesn't add any extra weight. And if there is a compromise in that way, it's here in the button. The button is metal. I guess that's the only extra weight that we would even think about. And that it's negligible. It's nothing. So they've put the jack in the button, which is genius. Because that's the natural opening of our instrument. There's a hole here and the button fits right in there, and it's to hold, well, it's to do a lot of things that I'm not sure about because I don't build violins, but it holds this gut that wraps around it, and holds the tailpiece and essentially holds this whole situation together. So they've replaced it, a traditional button. Sorry if you don't know what that is. That's this.
Just a wood peg, more or less.
Just a wood peg. And they replaced that with a metal one, which has the jack house. Sorry. And that's it. They've L-shaped the jack so that you can put it here and it's still flush with the button. Because some players hold their button out. If you're a larger person, your button would be exposed. But most women and more petite players, I play with my button in my neck. So they've thought of that. They go, okay, well, players play all over the place. I give a clinic on setup, and I talk a lot about this angle and pivot. And so it's important to be able to have that versatility. And so that's not going to bother you at all. And you can just plug it right into an amp, and you can do your rock star gigs on the weekend, your fiddle club, your busking. What, I don't know what people are up to. You can make your own album. Yeah.
Plug into an amp, put a looper pedal on it.
Yes, exactly.
But then take it to your 11th grade orchestra on Monday morning, and the orchestra director has no idea.
No idea. And also, who cares if they had an idea? It's an incredible instrument, and it's got an incredible piece of technology on it that's not noticeable at all. I think it's revolutionary, actually. It's really exciting and it's fun. It's I have one here, and I was like, okay, let me take out my amp.
There's your fun factor again. It's making it fun to play, fun for the student, opens up the world of possibilities to the violin that has been open to many other instruments, the guitar, keyboards, etc. But now the violin player has access to all these technologies.
It's true, because I often get like rock band envy, because I play the violin, and that's so not rock star. I mean, I know there's violins in rock bands and pop music and all of that stuff. They do find themselves out there, but this definitely there's no barriers. Now a kid who's starting is not like, oh, well, I play the violin, I can't play with my friends who are in a rock band. Oh no, you absolutely can. You just choose this as your step up. And now, like, if you have a child that has multiple interests but they haven't really decided what yet, that's fine. This is a wonderful option, because you're like, hey, well, I know your friend is like just started like a rock band clubs. I don't know if you know, but they're like popping up all over the place, where people like teach people how to be rock stars, like do like a whole band. And now that doesn't have to exclude the violin simply because you can't plug in and no one would hear you, or you need a mic or something cumbersome. You can just plug in like your friends.
Yeah, that's amazing. The Eastman Acoustic model is just unbelievable technology, and that's so neat to hear you talk about. I can tell you're excited about it. And
exciting, yeah. I think it's exciting for a lot of kids who get to create their own path. That's what I like about it, because playing the violin is usually associated with, like, oh, you're going to play classical music in an orchestra. or something of that nature. And that doesn't have to be that's what I do, but that's not what being a violinist means. That's not what being a musician has to mean. The sky's the limit. And I think anything we can do to empower the kids to make their own choices and to carve their own path and to make music fun. So many studies out that show solid 10 years of music study, instrument study, are what's needed to open up those neural pathways that impact your brain activity, health, resilience, capacity for the rest of your life. But you need the first 10 years. Everything on top of those 10 years is gravy, just keeps making it better. But you need those 10 years. And so, some kids love that journey. They're like, yep, my parents signed me up, or I asked my parents, and we're going to do this from this age to end of high school or college or whatever they're in it. And some kids are like, no, my mom is making me do this, and I do not like it. They're out there. We cannot turn a blind eye to those kids who just feel like this is not their jam. So the electroacoustic bridges some of those gaps. If you have a reluctant kid out there who's just not feeling it, and you're like, no, we're going to do music because it's good for you, and it is, and I support you. The electroacoustic can help you.
That's awesome. What a great way to kind of wrap this up. Rachelle, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Talking about the Strobel line of string instruments that Eastman makes for us. I think everybody will agree these instruments are phenomenal, among the top violins in the market today, and really an excellent choice for all levels of players. And that's incredibly clear from what you've been talking about. During this Upgrade Your Sound kind of showcase timing, we've got a number of interesting special offers, including we have 48-month financing available. Prior to now, Music and Arts has not been able to offer extended financing to this length of time. So we have 48-month financing. You can learn more about that in any one of our stores, or you can learn about it online through Woburn and Brasswind. You'll receive some follow-up info with details on the financing after the session, or you can go directly to Woburn Brasswind or visit one of our many Music and Arts stores. You can choose the financing, or we've got other special offers, including 15% off instruments over $199, which would certainly cover all of the Strobel we talked about, including Eastman electroacoustic models too. So if you have more questions, our showcase extends through the weekend. You can visit any one of our local Music and Arts stores to see these amazing instruments, speak with an expert, learn more about the lessons and repair services that we offer. So Rachelle, thanks again for joining us. And thanks to everybody for joining this instrument showcase about the Eastman violins and the Strobel lineup of strings.